Hi guys, in this pickups video I'm going to go through some kind of oddities and movies and TV shows and whatever kind of odds and ends stuff we found throughout the month I thought was pretty cool. First one was another addition to my collection of Worf figures from Star Trek, Worf from Star Trek Generations. Complete box here, absolutely cool. I really like Star Trek figures and Worf is my favorite character, so I kind of want the majority of the versions of Worf there. Another one is one my wife thinks is super weird and creepy, but I thought it's really cool. I like a lot of older movies, even going back to the silent era, the early 1919 through the early 20s. I like a lot of stuff from that period through the 50s, and one of my favorite actors, and one of the greatest comedians of all time in my opinion, let me make sure he's situated correctly here, but I found this really cool Groucho Marx doll standee here with his own little stand and stuff. My wife thinks it's really creepy, but it's kind of an interesting thing I want to add to the theater room after we move, kind of just a little display piece, because I really like the Marx Brothers, but Groucho specifically is definitely my favorite. Really like a lot of his stuff. He definitely has my sense of humor, and I just thought that was kind of a cool little collectible. It's from a series in the 80s where they did a bunch of classic actors and actresses, so that was a neat little find from Goodwill there. Getting into movies and stuff on DVD. This was actually sealed, but I opened it and watched it. Austin Powers and Goldmember, the third Austin Powers movie. Definitely my least favorite of the three, and it's probably why I didn't have a copy already. I still really liked it, thought it was really funny. Watched it back in the day, but I'm glad to finally actually add a copy to the movie library here. And this was another good Goodwill find. I don't know if you've ever seen the series Burst Angel. I really like that anime, and found a complete, just about mint copy here of episodes 21 to 24, so towards the end there. But just a really nice DVD for, you know, less than $2. Can't go wrong with some anime on DVD. This next one, another one that was sealed that I ended up opening up here, was actually completely free. I found it on the way to work. There were yard sales all day Saturday and Sunday, and I forget it was on the way to work either Sunday or Monday, one of the two. And I was going, and there was a bunch of rain, and I saw on the side of the road a bunch of boxes that said free, and probably stuff just left over from yard sales over the weekend. And I went over, and everything was waterlogged and damaged, and normally I won't check that out, but it looked, I could see from the car as I was driving by, there were a bunch of, looked like DVDs or games or something, so might as well try it out. This was at the bottom of the pile, so it's mostly protected and was sealed at the time, so it has absolutely no water damage. You're probably not going to remember this, but Beauty and the Beast, the complete first season, this was definitely a romantic drama in the late 80s to, I think the last season might have been 90 or 91. But it was actually really cool with Ron Perlman as the Beast. And despite being something that is very much a kind of a soap opera in a way, it was actually really interesting, at least what I remember of it. So it was a really cool find for free. I mean, brand new, something my wife and I will both enjoy. Something that is a little less enjoyable, but still has just a nostalgic feel to it, is the Dragonlance movie with people such as Lucy Lawless voicing some of the characters, and this was such a massive disappointment. I mean, I grew up with Dragonlance. The original trilogy was some of the first fantasy I ever read, some of the first real, adult novels I ever read. I really enjoyed those so much, shared those with my friends. My friend Matt really started those two, getting into Dragonlance and then Forgotten Realms. And we always wanted a movie, and especially after you saw what they did with The Lord of the Rings, man, they can do that with Dragonlance. And instead we got this animated abomination that the animation is really low quality. It looks like average quality for late 80s, early 90s, and coming out in the 2000s, it looked outdated, it looked unpolished, it looked underfunded. It was not done very well, it just was not that great, and that's probably why they only made one. They didn't even complete the trilogy, so still kind of a cool thing. I mean, you have Lucy Lawless, and you have one of the most nostalgic book series of all time for me, so worth having for the collection for a couple of bucks. And as always, from the Goodwill bargain room, 25 cents a piece or so, we pick up some VHS every once in a while if it's something interesting or nostalgic. VHS is not something we tend to have a huge collection of, but if it has some sort of meaning to us, we'll go ahead and pick it up. I really like Judy Garland. She's my favorite actress of all time, and I really like a lot of old Judy Garland movies. We found Meet Me in St. Louis on VHS. That was a good one there. We have a decent amount of anime on VHS we've been finding again for like well under $1 most of the time from the bargain room in Goodwill. And this time we added Star Blazers, which that was really cool. I was really happy to find that. And this, I had no idea what it is, but it looked interesting enough to pick up. But Angel of Darkness 2 definitely looks like it has some hentai vibes to it, but definitely worth going ahead and checking it out for a little bit of anime on good old VHS. And we also picked up a Cartoon Network VHS release, The Flintstones Christmas in Bedrock. I definitely like the Flintstones. I've never been a huge Jetsons fan for some reason, but I've always really liked the Flintstones. And the last two, one, again, in the same vein as that Dragonlance movie, but so much worse. The first Dungeons & Dragons movie. I made my wife watch this. She had never seen it before. I had the misfortune of actually paying and seeing this in theaters with my friend Matt, and I think we actually went with my mom for some reason. But we went and saw this in theaters, and wow, was that disappointing. I mean, the idea of making a Dungeons & Dragons movie in general is just kind of ridiculous, because Dungeons & Dragons is just a set of rules, really. It's like just a set of numbers and figures and ideas, and then you either make your own world and mythology, or you venture in a pre-made one, like the world of Kryn, or you go to Forgotten Realms, or like something along those lines. There's no actual Dungeons & Dragons world per se, or story, or anything like that. So it kind of didn't make sense to begin with. And then everything about it is just absolutely ridiculous, and the whole movie feels, if you've never seen it, it feels like what someone who has absolutely no idea what fantasy is at all, has never read anything, it's what, like, a person like that, what they perceive fantasy to be. It's like someone who, has absolutely no clue what fantasy or science fiction is, what that person envisions when they think of a bunch of nerds sitting around a table playing Dungeons & Dragons, and that's what they picture, and that's kind of what they made a movie of. That's what it felt like to me. It's almost offensive, really, the whole thing. But it's one of those things that rides the line very finely. It rides the line between just horrendous and so bad it's good. Think of, say, Dragon Ball Evolution. That goes over the line, and it's just offensive crap. And you need to set fire to any copy of that movie you ever see. But Dungeons & Dragons it's pretty funny, and a lot of it comes from the over-the-top acting, especially from Jeremy Irons. But it's so ridiculous. It's one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, honestly, it is probably amongst the bottom 10 movies I've ever seen. But it has this ridiculous, hilarious quality that makes it worth watching once or twice just because it's so absurd. And on the complete other end of the spectrum, one of my favorite movies, I found a really cool VHS edition that I never knew existed. I've started like a mini collection of different versions of this movie, but a limited edition of The Evil Dead, the first movie here. And this is a really cool plastic clamshell and this really nice silver color, really cool limited edition. And it's actually numbered on the back here, so on 29,401 of 35,000 that were made. So that's really cool to have. And it's more, though, than just the cover. It actually, you have the tape itself there, and this is one of the coolest parts, is you have this little booklet here that is a really cool journal of the production of the movie, and has lots of pictures, some black and white ones from the set, some color ones from the movie, and it's actually pretty thick. Like, you go through the whole thing, there's a lot here. It's a pretty decent manual, so this was a really cool VHS find. So this is probably my favorite find as far as the movies and kind of oddball stuff. That was really, really cool. I like finding unique versions of those movies. Definitely still looking for stuff like the red Laserdisc version of Evil Dead 2. Some really cool additions, especially if you start then going to versions of the movies abroad. Those three movies, Evil Dead 1, 2, and Army of Darkness, are a lot of cool different versions of that. So have you guys picked up anything that you thought was really cool over this past month or so? Some weird, obscure stuff, some nostalgic stuff, some real oddities?